All right. Today is June the 15th, 2020, and I'll go ahead and get started with today's work. Planners with the City of Tallahassee's agency, the CRA. On behalf of the CRA, which is comprised of the board, which includes Mayor Haley, Pro-Temp Mayor Diane Williams Cox, Commissioner Curtis Richardson, Commissioner Elaine Bryant, Commissioner Jeremy Matlow. In addition to the city manager, Mr. Reese Gold, the CRA executive director and assistant city manager, Mr. Wayne Tedder, the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee, the Downtown Redevelopment Commission, and the rest of the CRA team, that is Mr. Rick McCraw, Mrs. Sherry Curtis, Mrs. Melissa Ingram, and Ms. Kaylin Thompson. Welcome to this optional virtual pre-application CRA event grant workshop. Since this workshop is being held virtually, please note that there are attendees who are viewing the workshop that are not visible on the screen, which may include the mayor, some of the commissioners, some board members from either the Downtown Review Commission or the Citizens Advisory Commission, Citizen Advisory Committee, and citizens. This workshop is being recorded, and within 24 hours to no more than 48 hours, the recording will be posted on the CRA webpage, which is located at www.talgov.com/CRA. That is www.talgov.com/CRA. During the workshop, we will discuss 5 event grant opportunities, including discussing fiscal year 2000 large event grant funding, fiscal year 2021 Greater Frenchtown Southside large event grant funding, fiscal year 2021 downtown large event grant funding, fiscal year 21 Greater Frenchtown Southside promotional and special event grant funding, and fiscal year 21 downtown promotional and special event grant small funding. The CRA board approved a combined total of $385,000 to fund event grant programs, specifically allocating $100,000 for fiscal year 2020 Greater Frenchtown Southside large events, $100,000 each for fiscal year 2021 downtown large and Greater Frenchtown Southside large events, $35,000 for fiscal year 2021 downtown, what we call PSE, promotional and special event grants, small funding, and $50,000 for Greater Frenchtown Southside PSE, promotional and special event grants, what we call small funding. While the CRA is accepting applications for programs, for the various programs, the applications will be reviewed and scored by the applicable 3-member CRA District Advisory Committee or Commission. It is still important to note that the final disposition regarding event funding shall not occur until such time as the CRA and the City of Tallahassee is officially allowing gatherings to occur in the city. This is attributed to COVID-19, the pandemic. This means an applicant should not incur any cost intended as a CRA grant item or expenditure by which the applicant wants or will subsequently request the CRA to pay for. Applicants are cautioned not to incur any cost until final approval by the CRA, the applicable entity or person, either the CRA director or the CRA board, is granted. So what I'd like to do at this time is quickly go in and show you how to navigate to the CRA webpage with all the applicable information regarding the grants are. So now what I'm doing is gingerly going into the web browser and talgov.com. And the web searching. And once we get to the city website, we can go here that says our city. As you can see in the columns listed here, it does say community redevelopment. We're going to click there. You would have that information to open up to get to the CRA web page. And we'll wait for that to get here in just a moment. And right here with CRA News, information regarding the event grant programs are listed right here as relates to fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 CRA event programs. So I'll go ahead and quickly click on that link, which will pull up all of the information regarding the various event grant funding options, to include the applications, the scheduling of. So here is all the information regarding the programs listed here. Contact, complete the application, the links regarding fiscal year 2020 Greater Frenchtown Southside large events with the guidelines in the application. Same thing for fiscal year 21 is listed there as well. And there's some supplemental information found on the web page that will actually be helpful in completing the application. Things as it relates to the other important items, there's a budget sheet, which is a fillable budget sheet, and some of the text in that sheet can be manipulated by using the fillable sheet that's listed there under other items. Information as it relates to the redevelopment plans for the Greater Frenchtown Southside and the downtown, and the presentations that we will be conducting today are also stored there. Additionally, as you'll see on this web page, it will give you an expanded CRA map so that a person can determine in a couple of different ways what properties are located inside of the CRA district, as that is one of the requirements for submitting an application, is ensuring that whatever event you're hosting, that for the applicable funding source, that you're ensuring that your event does occur within one of the CRA districts. So I'll quickly show that map. Give you a legend that'll tell you which district is which colors. Yellow is the Greater Frenchtown Southside district and the downtown district. There are other ways to figure out if property is listed in a CRA district, and that is also located on our web page. So with that, I will go ahead and go into one of the presentations. We have actually prepared 3 separate PowerPoint presentations to highlight some of the important tidbits as it relates to the event grant programs. Some of the information is going to seem redundant, but it is pertinent to the specificity of each program. So today's workshop, as I mentioned, an agenda is also posted on our website, and it is our intent to go ahead and kind of follow the layout of that agenda. We will discuss the Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant Program first. Then we will discuss the Greater Frenchtown Southside and Downtown Promotional and Special Event Grant Small Funding. And then lastly, the Downtown Large Event Grant Funding. So what I'm doing now is going into the first presentation, as mentioned, which is the Greater Frenchtown Southside grant program. Our agenda will include going over the overview of the purpose of the grant, reviewing the eligibility and criteria guidelines, doing a budget review, and going over the post-event report. So one of the main things when we're discussing having a large event is being sure that the event meets the definition of what a large event is. Sorry. A large event is, and it's important that we make sure that whatever event is being hosted, that your event meets that specific definition of what a large event is. Go into quickly what some of the eligibility requirements are. Again, making sure that the event meets the definition of the events. The organization does need to be a not-for-profit organization registered with the Florida Department of State. The event also must one of the CRA districts. In this instance, since we're going over the Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant Program, it would mean that the event would need to occur inside of the Greater Frenchtown Southside District. The event must be related to the goals and the plan. On our website, the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan is available for review. Under the tab that I showed that relates to other information, we did pull out some excerpts of the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan, 2 pages in that redevelopment plan that specifically speak to what the goals and objectives are of the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan. So your event, you would need to make sure that your event at least meets one of the goals and objectives of the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan. But as it relates to scoring to get maximum points, if an individual can make sure that the event meets at least 3 of the goals and objectives of the redevelopment plan, then it's more possible to get all of the applicable points in that category. The event does need to be open to the public. It does not necessarily need to be free to the public. Just a portion of it needs to be open to the public, 51% of it. And you could charge for the cost of tickets. Doesn't necessarily need to be free, but it does need to be open to the public. What do we mean by that? We mean that you can't necessarily host an event that's only specific to one group of people. Let's say children only from 5 to 18 years old. That would not be a viable event to be able to host because you're honing in on only a specific genre of people that is not specifically open to the public at large. So I hope I've clarified that one well enough. It needs to be open to the public while not necessarily free, but some portion of it, at least 51%, has to be open to the general public at large. Talking about the Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant Program, and we talked about having 5 pots of money. There are actually 2 pots of money as it relates to the Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant funding. $100,000 under fiscal year 2020, which we're currently in fiscal year 2020. And it ends September 30th, 2020. We are accepting applications immediately for any applicants that are interested in funding for fiscal year 2020. And we will review those applications. We'll have review those applications and score those at individual meetings that will be subsequently determined when we would host those scoring meetings based off of when we get the applications, and we're able to coordinate scoring through the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee. 3 of the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee members will be the scorers for all of the Greater Frenchtown Southside applications. We will have one alternate CAC member to be a backup for scoring if there's something that may occur with one of the other scorers. So we just got through talking about fiscal year 2020 Greater Frenchtown Southside large event grants and events that need to be hosted if you're requesting funding by September 30th, 2020. Fiscal year 2021, we are in the current event application cycle, which started Monday, June 8th, 2020, and it ends Friday, July 10th at 4:30 p.m. And for fiscal year 2021, Greater Frenchtown Southside large events must occur during the fiscal year for fiscal year 21, which is October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. Criteria in actuality, some of the eligibility requirements do stipulate an applicant must be current and not in default on any city or CRA loans. The facility in which events occur must not have any outstanding code violations. The event cannot be similar in nature to the for-profit business arm of a not-for-profit organization. As relates to that, an example would be, say, a beauty that is a for-profit organization. The not-for-profit can't the beauty salon. So have a hair contest, hair competition profit where it ties to your for business arm of your organization. If you have any questions regarding that, we will be available to help you through any concern or question that you may have. And as I get further down into the presentation or at the end, we'll tell you the ways that you can contact staff to kind of answer any concerns or questions or clarification points that may be needed. So again, this event cycle for fiscal year 2020, Greater Frenchtown Southside large event, we're accepting those applications now or immediately. For the event grant cycle for fiscal year 2021, for the events for Greater Frenchtown Southside large, the event cycle has already opened, and we're accepting applications from when the event cycle opened, Monday, June 8th, 2020, beginning at 9 a.m. until Friday, July 10th, 2020, no later than 4:30 p.m. We are only accepting the applications by email or electronically. We are not accepting hand-delivered applications. We are not accepting applications that are mailed in or sent in otherwise by courier or FedEx or any professional mail delivery service. So those applications and all the attachments have to be turned in and completed electronically and uploaded to us or attached to us in email format, emailed. And you do get one opportunity to turn in the information. So you have to, when you're completing the application and giving the supplemental information, it's a one-time submittal opportunity prior to the deadline day and time. So what can the funds be used for? CRA funding can be used for rentals such as equipment, tents, chairs, tables to help you pay for the facility, portalets. The funding also can be utilized to help you with marketing and promoting the event by advertising, by printing of flyers and banners only specific to the event. It can help you pay for your entertainment and your performers, permits, film licenses, and security liability insurance. Can't the funds be used for? The funds can't be used for religious or political or for promotional, for religious or political promotional and special events. It can't be used for promotional or special events that are inconsistent with the goals and objectives of the CRA and or the city of Tallahassee. Promotional and special events, the funding can't be used for events that are sponsored by the state of Florida, local governments, or universities. Again, funds cannot be used for events that are not open to the public, either for free or for a fee. The program funds cannot be used for operating expense of the hosting organization, including paying for the operating expense or the hosting organization's employee salaries or other compensation. Promotional and special event grant funding, large event grant funding cannot be used for prize money. For an example, you can't have a dance-a-thon and pay $500 to the first place dancer, or $250 to second place, or $100 to third place. It cannot go towards prize money, awards, plaques, or certificate. It cannot be used for the purchase of tangible personal property. For an example, the event, you cannot use CRA funds to buy gift bags and trinkets to give away to the public, because those would be considered tangible personal property items that an attendee will get and leave with. That's different than utilizing the funding for food or drinks. The funds cannot be used for interest payments or reduction of deficits or loans. It cannot be used for travel expenses. And when we're speaking of travel expenses, we're meaning travel expenses specific to employees of the organization, not travel expenses for you to bring a top jazz musician or a top jazz world-renowned artist to bring them from Europe or Africa to participate in your event. The travel expense that's listed there is specific to travel expenses for individuals that are part of the nonprofit organization that is requesting funding. The funds cannot be used for purchase of alcoholic beverages, and it can't be used to pay for taxes such as the state sales tax. So some rules to be aware of regarding this Greater Frenchtown Southside large event grant funding. There is a grant award request amount of $10,000. The maximum typical grant amount is up to $25,000. First-time events may be eligible for a $40,000 grant. It is important here to note that amounts $25,000 and under can be approved based off a recommendation by the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee to the CRA director. Grant funds for the Greater Frenchtown Southside large event in excess of $25,000, which is $25,000 in a penny, requires disposition by the CRA board. And remember, for funds in excess of $25,000, the event has to be a first-time event. The minimum application score for the Greater Frenchtown Southside large event grant program to be eligible for funding is a score of 55 points out of a score of 100 points. But there are, when you review the application, there is the potential for an applicant to get an additional 10 points that can be added or included to getting the score of 55 points. So there are 10 additional points may potentially based off of the questions in getting those additional 10 to get a total score of 55 points to be funded, provided that there is funding available. So what we'll go to here is the budget sheet. In the application, there is a template of a budget sheet that we are hopeful that individuals will use for the funding. And that is listed here as a part on the website. Listed under other documents is a CRA event budget that can be changed and manipulated and completed. Looking at this budget, we do have some static titles under the various categories. Those are categories that you could change by deleting out, what's listed here. These are not the only things necessarily that the CRA would allow funding for. So just know that there is a event budget included on the website that you can use to change those categories, but you just want to be cautious that whatever categories you are creating, if you're not that are just on just the sample template, that it is going to be a category. If you're requesting CRA funding, that is a category that is an eligible item that we would fund. If you do not, if you put an item in a category we don't fund and you're asking for CRA money, you would not get points on the budget for that, and we would have to try to help you put the money in a category that we would fund. But the budget is worth quite a bit of points on the application. So it's critical to make sure that the budget is done correctly and you're putting the request for CRA funding in appropriate category. Typically, it's best to, if there is one item or two items that will take up the bulk of the CRA money, usually we will advise an applicant to be safe and try to put the CRA funding in a category if the amount is big enough where it is an item that is not going to be a questionable item, or you won't wind up putting in a category that we would not fund. We have an example of, let's say, I see the big X there, a budget that was turned in that wasn't exactly correct. And I want to quickly show you what the issue was with this budget, and directly behind it, I'm hopeful that we have a corrected method that this budget the way it should have been turned in on. So this one is incorrect, and that's what the big X here is all about. So if you look at the budget that was submitted, and this was an actual example that was turned into us, one of the CRA event years for funding. And the applicant did pretty good here, where they are saying that they had a cost for equipment. What the estimated cost column is here. And for the item, as you can see, they put that they requested of the funding that they're requesting, that 2,500 of that they would like to go to equipment. Then here they put a category for doing ads, TV and radio and news, I guess marketing. So they said that costs $4,000 that they estimated, because we don't really know exactly yet until the event occurs or you get your true invoices. They did not put a category here for any CRA money. It's fine. It will go down. Remember, we went over our listing of items eligible for CRA funding, items that are not eligible for CRA funding. This applicant, meaning that we go down their column that they've a row that's listed that says gift bag, and in the column cost, that's fine, they $100. But also in the column as it relates to will any CRA money go towards those gift bags, that did put That is an issue with CRA money because we remember we talked about what items are eligible, which aren't. Tangible personal would not be an eligible category. This could have been fixed by just putting that in, item that the CRA money could go towards. If you look, one of the other things listed here in this column, they estimated $22,000 and they listed that they were requesting $5,000 from the CRA. This is their estimated expenses. But when you come over here on their income, they're seeing that they have a total income of $11,000. So there's an issue here where these are not reconciling between what you're estimating and what your income is. We're already in the, so to speak, the red. So how will you correct this budget? This is how you would correct the budget. Green check mark. We talked about these categories, which were applicable categories for here. As you can see, a way that this budget could have been modified is instead of that area where they had the gift bags down here where it said 500, you see some portion of that money was moved up into a category that we know the CRA funds as it relates to marketing the event and that type of thing. We put that money could have been put there and the budget would have been getting better. Also, if you'll notice now, remember the budget ahead of us that was the erroneous one for this exact same item, they had a higher total there here. I think that was 22,000. As you can see now, these two are the same. What the expenses, what the estimated expenses are and their income, this does not necessarily have to match. As you'll note down here, there is a reference to expenses or your income is higher and you're left with additional money after your actual event is over. There's no issue with that necessarily. You'll just do a little notation explaining why or where did that additional money come from and how you're anticipating utilizing those with other events moving forward. And we have one more, which is example, and I hope you can see that. One more, again, this has an X across it, meaning that there's something wrong in here as it relates to this budget. And this is a little, let's see if we can see what is wrong here. So they have a listing of funding for the venue, and they have a listing of quite a few other categories that are listed here. But if you'll look at the estimated column, I see a number here of 4,790. Looks like in total, they're asking for 2,500 CRA dollars, which this would have been, of course, remember we talked about large event. That isn't even meeting the threshold of the large event grant funding, but we're just using this budget as an example of how to do the budget. You want to be sure whatever budget you're doing, whatever funding request that you're asking for, that it falls within the purview of the event funding that you're asking for. Promotional special event grants is $5,000. Remember, large event grants, the minimum is $10,000, maximum is $25,000. First events are applicable for $40,000. So we have this information that's here, and they have a number here that says 5,220. So we're going to go to the correct way or how they could have corrected this actual budget, which is for this one. One of the things was, remember when we talked about is no issue necessarily, and these two numbers not totaling on what your estimated cost is and what your income is. It just whenever your income is more than your cost, just making sure that you put a note when you do your final budget to us or in your preliminary budget. If it looks like your funding is going to be over your estimated cost, just explain to us the amount of that difference and how you utilize those funds moving forward. So once you're funded, what's next? Once you're funded, what's next is if your event is going to be held on public property, then there is a requirement to submit an insurance certificate. If it's going to be held on like in a park, city park, there is also some insurance information for Parks and Recreation and for the CRA. Once you're funded, you will have to execute an agreement, which is a signed agreement from an individual that represents the not-for-profit. That information does need to be signed and notarized. And let's remember, as it relates to going through, submitting the application, us doing a review, those applications going to the Greater Frenchtown Southside, in this instance, Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee for scoring and recommendation to the applicable body or person that can do the approvals. Just remember that due to COVID-19, that the actual disposition on final funding will only be determined once the city of Tallahassee allows gatherings to occur, and that is to occur within the city, not just necessarily city-owned property, but the city in totality. Now, with the Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant Program, we do allow or will allow for an applicant to request up to 50% of the grant funds prior to the event. The other 50% of the grant funds can be issued or will be issued, and the post-event report is submitted and accepted by staff. For the large events, request that the post-event report is filed with the CRA within 60 days of the event. The post-event report, we have a template. Your post-event report does not have to be exact to the post-event. It is put on our website so that you'll see the basic information that we look for. But the most critical thing as it relates to getting the CRA money and submitting your post-event report is making sure you show us how the CRA money was spent by giving us the invoices and the paid invoices or receipts that tabulate to the amount of money that you requested from the CRA. So what would a good post-event report do? Well, actually, the purpose of the post-event report is to verify that the terms and conditions of the agreement have been satisfied. A good report should demonstrate the deliverables of the contractual obligations. It's going to go over the review of the overall success of the event. It'll document the benefits to the community, and it'll show an accurate and final budget and recommendations for the event or future events that the organization may want to have. So with that, this will conclude our discussion as it relates to the Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant Program, either the fiscal year 2020 funding or the fiscal year 2021 funding. The only differential or difference is the Greater Frenchtown Southside 2020 Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant is open now, and we're accepting applications now until the end of fiscal year 2024 events, which is September 30th, 2020, but the events do need to occur within fiscal year 2020. Listed on this sheet is how you can contact the CRA if you have any questions or concerns regarding the program. You can email us at our department email address, which is cra@talgov.com. You could call us at the department phone number listed there, 850-891-8357. You can contact me at my email address, sheila.williams@talgov.com. Sheila is SHEILA WILLA, standard spelling of Williams, WILLIAMS at talgov.com. You can give me a phone call as well, 850-891-8355. You can contact Ms. Sherry Curtis as well, or any member of the CRA team, Sherry Curtis, and her email address is listed there and direct phone number. Also, remember that the information regarding the Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant Program is listed on the CRA webpage at www.talgov.com/CRA for the information, guidelines, and application. So with that, I will go ahead and move into is the third pot of money, the third pot of funding, because we just discussed fiscal year 2020 Greater Southside funding, and we discussed Greater Frenchtown Southside fiscal year 2021 funding. Again, the information may seem redundant, but it is a little bit based off of the specific funding for that event funding. So now what we are doing is we're discussing the third and fourth pots of funding for the Greater Frenchtown Southside and the downtown promotional and special events. And I'll call that the small funding for fiscal year 2021, which starts October 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. The event grant cycle for the small funding for either district, Greater Frenchtown Southside and downtown promotional special event grants, small, is open now, which is started Monday, June 8th, 2020, and goes through July 10th, 2020 by 4 p.m. The agenda appears the same, where we talk about the overview and purpose of the grant program, review and eligibility criteria and guidelines, the budget review, and the post-event. You want to be sure that the event meets what the purpose of the program is, which is to support special events that promote the goals and objectives of the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan or the Downtown Redevelopment Plan, based off of what location you would like for a small event to occur will determine which redevelopment plan you need to make sure, an applicant will need to make sure that their event promotes the goals and objectives. Remember, the redevelopment plans for either district are shown on the CRA website, and specifically the goals and objectives. There's an excerpt of the specific goals and objectives. There are 2 sheets for the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan. The entire downtown redevelopment plan is shown as well as a link and on our webpage, and dependent upon what location within the downtown redevelopment district an event is going to occur, an applicant is going to have to peruse the redevelopment plan to call out specifically what the goals and objectives are specific in the redevelopment plan in the redevelopment district for where they're hopeful to host their event. What are the eligibility requirements? Again, it needs to meet the definition of a promotional and special event. The organization applying for the money does need to be registered with the Florida Department of State. The event must be held within one of the CRA districts, either the Greater Frenchtown Southside CRA district or the downtown district. An applicant can only apply for funding for the event grant funding. I'll make sure I set this here. only one pot of money an applicant for fiscal year 2021, meaning either downtown large money or downtown small money, either Greater Frenchtown South Side money, small or large, one of the four. You can't submit applications between the districts for the different funding sizes. One submittal from an organization for fiscal year 2021. The event must be related to the goals and objectives of the applicable redevelopment plan for which the event is held. Be sure that you're selecting the appropriate application for the district that you're wanting the event to occur within. The event must be open to the public. While the event does not necessarily have to be free, it does need to be open to the public in totality. Again, it can't just be open to a specific group of individuals, say 5-year-olds to 18-year-olds, and those are the only people that you're wanting to attend. It has to be open, while not necessarily free of charge, but 51% of it does have to be free, but the event does have to be open to the public at large. For fiscal year 2021 event grant funds, the event must be held October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. There is the ability to have more than one event date, like a series of events, but the events for the fiscal year 2021 money does need to occur between the fiscal year 21, which is again October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. Eligibility requirements. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Sheila.
All right, there is one citizen that has sent something saying, okay, he's saying he can hear now. Sorry, I just wanted to be sure everybody was getting the information they needed. Thank you. Okay, an applicant must be current and not in default on any city or CRA loans. The facility in which the event occurs can't have any outstanding code violations. The events cannot be similar in nature to the for-profit arm of a not-for-profit organization. I can use, let's say, another example, say a restaurant that serves seafood as its for-profit arm. We can't have an event hosted by an arm of such an establishment where they're having a seafood event or a seafood competition. Fiscal year 2021 events for downtown promotional special events will be called PSC or small. Fiscal year 2021 events for Greater Frenchtown Southside, which is listed there as GFS PSC, which is promotional and special event grant small. The cycle started Monday, June 8th, beginning at 9 a.m. and goes until Friday, July 10th, 2020, no later than 4:30 p.m. We are only taking the applications and the supplemental information, which basically I believe is only if you have support letters, one-time submittal prior to 10th date, no later than 4:30 p.m. What can funds be used for? Rental of equipment, marketing and promotion of the event, printing of flyers, and a banner specific to the event. Cost for entertainment and the performers. It can be used for costs for funds for permits and licenses, and security or general liability insurance. What can't the funds be used for? Can't be used for religious or political, promotional, and special events. It has to be used for events that meet the goals and objectives of the applicable CRA redevelopment plan. Cannot be, wait a minute, it can't be used for events that don't meet the goals and objectives of the specific goals and objectives of the redevelopment plan. It cannot be used, funds cannot be used for promotional and special event grants sponsored by the state of Florida, local governments, or universities. CRA funds for events cannot be used for events that are not open to the public, either for free or for a fee or charge. The event funds cannot be used for operating expenses of the hosting organization to include salaries or other compensations. The funds cannot be used for prize money or awards or plaques or certificate. Example of prize money is if you're having maybe a race and you can't give out CRA funds as prize money for your first or second place or third place. It can't be used for the purchase of tangible personal property. Again, we could use the gift bag analogy. You can't be use CRA funds to purchase gift bag items that you're going to subsequently give out to the citizens or whoever attends the event. The funds can't be used for interest payment or reduction of deficits, can't be used for travel expenses as it relates to individuals specific to the nonprofit organization that is obtaining or requesting the funding. Remember, the funds can be used for travel expenses for individuals that will be participating that are outside of your organization to help you do the event. Again, let's say you have a top chef that's in California or again, Africa or Europe. You can use some of the funds to bring in that specific chef as travel expenses. The travel expenses just here means it can't be used for travel expenses for someone that is a part of the organization that is requesting the funding. CRA funds cannot be used for taxes such as Florida state taxes. So some things to be aware of as it relates to the fiscal year 2021 downtown and Greater Frenchtown Southside promotional and special event grant funding, which we'll call the small funding. There is no minimum grant award amount, but the maximum here for the small funding for either district, Greater Frenchtown Southside or downtown, is $5,000. Again, we're taking in the applications, they're being reviewed, they'll be forwarded on to the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee for application fall as small funding within the Greater Frenchtown Southside CRA district. Same thing as it relates to any downtown promotional and special event grant applications. Promotional and special event grants that we call small for downtown will again be accepted, taken in within the cycle time period for fiscal year 2021 funding. They will be forwarded to the Development Review, Downtown Review Commission, which is a DRC, which for both of the advisory committees that will score the applications based off of which district, there will be 3 evaluators with a 4th as an alternate should something happen where one of the 3 can't score an application. So the minimum award, there isn't a minimum award. The applications must score a minimum of 50 points to be eligible for funding, and that is out of 100 points. An example of a budget template that could be modified or manipulated by changing some of these columns and some of the row data is on the CRA website. You do not necessarily have to use this template. You do not necessarily, well, we want you to use this template, but these categories, you can change those category titles and columns, but you want to be sure if you're putting any money in any of those CRA column, in the CRA column, that the item is actually an item that is an eligible item. that the CRA would fund utilizing our money. Again, this is, I believe, the same example that we showed before in the prior presentation, but I'll go over this one again. This actually, of course, has a big X over it, meaning that there is something that's wrong here in this budget. So remember, we talked about what monies can't be used for. So quickly going over this one again, we're showing that equipment is listed category for funding. They have a column for CRA money and how much of the CRA money they'd like for us to utilize. Going down, they have a category here for marketing, publicity and marketing, but there's no CRA funding here. They did in this other column put gift bags. They have a cost, estimated cost of $500, and they actually do have funding listed from the CRA of $500. Remember, this could be quantified as personal tangible products that someone is going to get. Can't use CRA monies for that. They could have changed that and moved this up to, if they had a category that we would have funded, you could shift that money, maybe say to performers, because remember, well, CRA funds could go towards one of those categories. Also here, they have books and supplies. Again, they have listed estimated $2,000, and they're trying to utilize $2,000 of the CRA money for that category. Again, that's going to be more like tangible personal products. Not good to use CRA money for such. And again, listed here is for the expenses. They have one total. And for income, they have another. There would need to be some explanation about why. See how corrected. And again, this is manipulating some of the funding, CRA funding, in a category that we would normally fund. If you remember, there was something up here that said gift bags, and down here where we have books and supplies, there was a dollar amount listed as CRA money. A fix was just shifting some of that money into actual categories that the CRA would fund. One of the quicker ways that we like to tell people, if you're getting a certain amount of funding, sometimes it's better if you can lump the CRA money, larger amounts, into one or two categories, so that we know that you're putting the funding in a category the CRA would actually fund. For example, here, look, the applicant is requesting the full $5,000, but if you look up here, some of these categories are larger categories, amount estimated columns, that really, instead of them breaking the $5,000 down into all these other categories, you almost could have like put all of the funding, just say here, you could have did $4,500 here, a $5,000 there, and that would have taken away from having 1, 2, 3, 4 places that you broke up the funding into, and it would have taken it to 2. It would be easier to track, because in the end, you would only need 2 invoices and 2 receipts for the money, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are just some of the techniques and tidbits that may be helpful as you move forward. Going over our next budget, again, this one has an X by it, meaning that there's something germane or wrong here, or that needed to be explained a little bit more. And we talked about the columns here, how the estimated column of funding is here, what the estimated expenses are versus the estimated income. And we can see they have the income as being more than what the estimated expenses would be, meaning that there's some money left over. And all we need here is the two don't have to actually balance or match the same dollar figure, but when it doesn't, we just ask how that additional funding is going to be utilized moving forward, and that would pretty much correct that budget. So once you're funded, what's next? We will look for an applicant to provide us with certificate of insurance for events when the event is hosted on a city-owned property. And for example, if it's a park, you also would work with Parks and Recreation on the applicable certificate for them. And we can utilize, as long as you put the CRA, we can get a copy of that. But that's only necessary when your event is being held on publicly owned property. Your nonprofit will execute the agreement with the CRA, and that will require that one of your authorized CRA officers would need to sign the grant agreement, and it does require a notary. You'll turn that back into the CRA, and we could, after the agreement is executed, it does require some other signatures within the City of Tallahassee and CRA before it is fully executed. And once the agreement is executed with the promotional and special event grant program for the small funding, either downtown or Greater Frenchtown Southside small funding, we do provide those funds in advance once the agreement is executed, which is a little bit different than what we discussed with the Greater Frenchtown Southside large. Typically with the large funding, the money comes after the event is held and the post-event report is turned in and it is approved. Remember, with the Greater Frenchtown large money, we will allow applicants to request in the beginning, in writing, 50% of the large funding. Not to confuse you, but here we're talking about the promotional and special event grant funding, the small money for either district, Greater Frenchtown Southside or Downtown District. No minimum funding requested amount. The maximum money is $5,000. We do provide the applicant with the small funding once you're approved for funding and the agreement is executed. And we try to do that as quickly as possible for the applicants. But again, let's remember, due to COVID-19, the disposition will be determined once the City of Tallahassee allows gatherings to occur. The post-event report must be filed within 45 days of the event. Again, there's the post-event report template. The report does not have to be exact to the post-event template. The most important thing is showing us how the CRA funds are used and utilized, giving us your invoices, paid invoices, and/or receipts. So we're at the post-event report. The purpose is to verify the terms and conditions, to verify that the terms and conditions of the agreement have been satisfied. A good post-event report is going to demonstrate the deliverables of the contractual obligations, the information that we put in the agreement, and what you wrote in the application and how you were approved for the funding. You'll explain the overall success of the event. You'll document the benefits to the community. You'll show an accurate and final budget, and you'll make recommendations for future events. The post-event report is due, again, 45 days after the date of the event. There is the ability to get a one-time extension on the post-event report, and I believe the time parameter is 30 days. So this actually concludes the presentation as it relates to the fiscal year 2021 downtown and the fiscal year 2021 Greater Frenchtown promotional and special event grant programs, small funding. You may contact us at any time with any CRA department email, CRA@talgov.com. You may call us at the department phone number 850-891-8357. You can email me, Sheila Thompson Williams, Sheila, SHEILA.Williams, standard spelling of Williams, WILLIAMS, @talgov.com, or you could call me 850-891-8355. You also can contact Sherry Curtis by phone 850-891-8354, and her email, Sherry, SHERI.Curtis@talgov.com, or any member of the CRA team. Listed there is the CRA's website, web page. www.talgov.com/CRA for the information and guidelines and application. CRA website is www.talgov.com/CRA. This will now conclude our discussion regarding the four of the 5 pots or funding programs for events. So far, we have discussed fiscal year 2020, Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Funding. We have discussed fiscal year 2021, Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant Funding. We have discussed fiscal year 2021, Downtown and Special Event Grant Funding, small funding. We have discussed fiscal year 2021, Greater Frenchtown Southside Promotional and Special Event Grant Funding, small funding. With that, we have one additional source of funding to discuss. And with that, it will be Ms. Sherry Curtis, who will do that presentation or PowerPoint explanation. And this next presentation will be as it relates to fiscal year 2021 downtown large funding. I will go ahead and proceed with closing out my screen so that Ms. Curtis can go ahead and show her presentation as it relates to funding for fiscal year 2020 downtown funding. Thank you, Sherry, and welcome.
All right, thank you, Sheila. Great presentation. All right,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello, my name is Sherry Curtis. I am going to present the Downtown District Large Event Grant Program. I am going to share my screen with you in a second here, and we will get started. Okay, welcome everyone. Good evening. I am presenting the Downtown Large Event Grant Program. Sheila has already talked about the large event grant program for the Greater Frenchtown Southside District, and I am going to present the large event grant program for the Downtown District. A lot of this information will be repetitive because the programs are very similar, but they do have small differences, and hopefully we'll highlight those differences as we go through the presentation this evening. One of the things that we'll continue to emphasize is the situation with COVID-19 and events. So due to COVID-19, the events will not be funded until the city of Tallahassee allows gatherings to be held. So we'll continue to emphasize that throughout the presentation as Sheila has done already with the other 2 presentations she's presented. Just to let you know, Sheila's already talked about the cycle opening. The program started June 8th. And the cycle closes on July 10th at 4:30. The applications are being accepted by email, so you can download the applications from our website, from our webpage, and you can email those applications to the email address that's on the application, as well as at the end of this presentation. So getting started, our agenda is very much like the agenda on the previous program, on the previous applications. We will first start talking about the overview and the purpose of the grant program. We'll go over the application criteria and guidelines. We'll also review the budget briefly, and then we'll discuss the post-event report and disbursement of the grant. So let's talk about the purpose of the Downtown Large Event Grant Program. It is to provide support to special events that promote the goals and objectives of the Downtown Redevelopment Plan and generate economic activity in the district. The program also brings citizens and visitors to the redevelopment area. The application criteria. When you're considering applying for the downtown district large event grant funding, applicants must meet the application criteria. And there's several criteria that we'll go through during this presentation. First of all, the applicants must meet the definition of a large event, and that definition is a new or existing organized concert, exhibition, festival, carnival, athletic event, a craft show, competition, parade, celebration, market, or any event similar in nature which is open to the public. It also has the potential to generate hotel stays through the attraction of a regional audience or generate economic activity within the downtown district. The events must be a nonprofit organization. The applicant must be a nonprofit organization registered with the Florida Department of State Division of Corporations, and the event must be held in the downtown district. Additional criteria includes events must relate to at least one goal or objective of the downtown district redevelopment plan, and that plan can be located on the CRA's webpage. The event must be open to the public. The majority of large event activities must be free, and events must be held during the fiscal year 2021, which is October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. Criteria continued, where the applicant must be current and not in default on any city or CRA loans. The facility in which the event occurs must not have any outstanding code violations. And these two items, these two criteria, staff will research those criteria once the application has been submitted. Events cannot be similar in nature to a for-profit business arm of a not-for-profit organization. And Sheila went over explaining, giving you an example of that. Another example of that would be if you had a nonprofit organization that had a for-profit business arm that it was, say, for example, a barbecue restaurant. That nonprofit organization could not hold a barbecue festival, being that the for-profit arm of that nonprofit, that event is similar to their for-profit business. So a barbecue restaurant could not hold as a nonprofit organization a barbecue festival. That would be considered a non-eligible event under the Downtown Large Event Program. Applications must be signed by at least 2 officers currently listed with the Department of State Division of Corporations or who are authorized to sign the application on behalf of the organization. When applying for downtown large event funding, there are things that CRA funds can be used for, and then there are things that CRA funds cannot be used for. Let's first talk about what funding CRA funds can be used for. These things include, but are not limited to, rentals, such as equipment, tents, chairs, tables, facilities, portalets, etc. Marketing and promotional materials, including advertising, printing of flyers, banners, but it also includes social media platforms, entertainment, performers, permits, film licenses, security, such as TPD, or if you wanted to use private security firms. And you could also use CRA funds for general liability insurance. Here are some of the things that CRA funds cannot be used for. And those include, but are not limited to, religious and political promotional and special events, events that are inconsistent with the goals and objectives of the CRA, the City of Tallahassee, or Leon County, events sponsored by the state of Florida, local governments, or universities, events that are not open to the public, and operating expenses of a hosting organization, including salaries or other compensation. Additional items where CRA funds cannot be used for include prize money, awards, plaques, certificates, purchase of tangible personal property, interest payments or reduction of debt or loans, travel expenses not including performers or entertainment. So these travel expenses are general travel expenses that are incurred by the host organization. Program funds cannot be used for alcoholic beverages nor taxes such as Florida state sales tax. We encourage applicants to use their Florida exemption certificate when purchasing items for the event. That way they can get exempt from paying any sales taxes because you cannot use CRA funds to reimburse you on any taxes. Some additional guidelines or rules that applicants should be aware of. They're listed here. For example, the maximum grant is $25,000 for downtown large events. The minimum an applicant can apply for is $10,000, and first-time events are eligible to apply for a maximum of $40,000. Downtown event applicants must score a minimum of 70 out of 100 points to be eligible for funding. And downtown large event applicants must demonstrate their match based on CRA funds requested. For example, if you're requesting the maximum of $25,000, then you also must document in the application your matching funds of at least $25,000 also. Those matching funds cannot be donations and services of in-kind donation or services cannot be used for your matching funds. However, you can use other public sources such as the Tourist Development Council or COCA. So if you received a grant from the Tourist Development Council or you received a grant from COCA, you can use those funds as part of your match, but you cannot use in-kind donations or services as part of your match. Now we'll talk about a little bit about the budget. Sheila has already gone over the budget and it's pretty similar for all the various programs. So I'll just briefly go through the budget so that you, just to give you another look at it. So each application that's submitted with this program has to submit a budget. So an estimated budget with your application needs to be submitted in order for your application to be considered a valid application. And what we're showing on the screen right now is an Excel budget template. And as Sheila indicated, the budget template you can use this template and you can find that template on the CRA's webpage. All the different line items that are located on this template can be replaced. You can modify these line items to fit your particular individual event. When it comes to the budget, you want to ensure that you're providing your entire estimated budget for your event, and it includes all items, including the funds that you're going to be using for the CRA. For example, if you are renting a facility for your event that's going to cost you $1,000, in this first column where it says estimated expenses, where it says rentals and facilities, you would put $1,000 there. But if you're going to use $500 of that $1,000, you're going to use it for the CRA is going to pay $500 of that. You would put that $500 under CRA, under the column for CRA for facilities. So you would, if it's going to cost you $1,000 to rent that facilities, you would put the $1,000 under the estimated column, but $500 of that is going to be paid for with your CRA grant dollars that you hope to receive. You would put that $500 under the CRA column for facilities. You also want to make sure that expenses that you put under the CRA column are going to be all allowable CRA expenses. And that are those items or those things that the CRA funds can be used for. Again, when you're doing your budget, if there is a profit, and Sheila has talked about this earlier, if you have a profit that is more income than your expenses, then you also want to explain how that profit is going to be used. If it's going to be used for charity or if it's going to be used for next year's event, you want to make sure you provide us with an explanation on how that additional revenue is going to be used by the organization. And now we're going to talk about what's next in terms of we're going to talk about what's next in terms of once your application has been submitted along with your budget and you've met all the criteria, you've scored higher than 70 points, and your application is approved, there are additional paperwork that needs to be completed. That additional paperwork includes, for some individuals, if your event is being held on city or CRA property, it's going to include providing us with the insurance certificate. That insurance certificate needs to name the city and or CRA as an additional insurer on that insurance certificate because you're having that event on city or CRA owned property. Another item that needs to be completed once you're approved is going to be an agreement. The CRA will execute an agreement with the host organization indicating the conditions and terms of those grant dollars that you receive. So an agreement has to be executed before the CRA funds can be utilized. The other thing that you will want to remember is that for downtown large event, grant funds are typically dispersed after a post-event report has been approved. And we'll talk about the post-event in our next slide, although Sheila has already covered that, but we'll go over it briefly again. Also, you also want to remember, again, due to COVID-19, events will not be funded until the City of Tallahassee allows gatherings to be held. So let's talk about the post-event report. Once the event has concluded, the applicant must submit a post-event report within 60 days after the event. If you have an event that has a series of events, meaning you may have an event every month or a couple of weeks, if there's a series of events that are taking place, then the post-event report is due 60 days from the last event being held. The report helps us to verify the terms and conditions of the agreement that was executed between the CRA and the host applicant. The post-event report should demonstrate delivery of contractual obligations, and that just means the conditions and terms of the agreement. It reviews overall success of the event. It documents benefits to the community, meaning how does that event benefits the community. It shows an accurate and final budget. So when you first submitted your application with your estimated budget, with your post-event report, you're going to submit your final budget. And it may change somewhat, but it needs to be similar. And you want to also make sure that when you submit your post-event report, you provide the documentation on how you expended the CRA funds. The post-event report also should include recommendations for future events. And this is coming up to our last slide. And so this presentation is just about over. And our last slide just gives you the contact information that Sheila has already presented to you. So with the CRA email address, Sheila's email address, and my email address, and our phone numbers. And then it also gives you the CRA webpage where you can get information on the application and the guidelines, as well as you can receive the post-event report. If that's not already on the website, we'll make sure the post-event report outline is on the website. And then we'll also make sure that the budget template, I believe, is already on our website. So this is the end of the presentation for the downtown large event funding. Again, I can't re-emphasize enough. Please remember that events will not be funded until the City of Tallahassee allows gatherings. The CRA will not reimburse any incurred expenses prior to the City of Tallahassee allowance of gatherings. So we can not emphasize that enough for you all. And if there are any questions, please feel free to contact me or Sheila or any of CRA's staff. And I want to thank you for your attention, and we hope this information has been helpful. And with that, I'm going to conclude and try to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to try to turn it back over to Sheila. Oh, hold on. And Sheila, I believe I am turning the host presentation back over to you.
You did. Thank you so very, very much. Everything Sherry said. I'm glad you had your definition of events because I didn't quite find mine. The
That's
definition of the
okay.
event that you read off is applicable mostly for all of the events. So the information regarding the definition of events is found in each one of the application guidelines and criteria. So with that, I want to go over some quick reminder items. Again, in doing the event, make sure that the definition of whatever you're doing falls within the purview of the definition of an event, applicable for the funding source that you're requesting. I believe the definition is all the same. Also, remember there are specific deadline dates for turning in the one-time email submittal of the application and the applicable documents and supporting letters. And for people that didn't attend this optional workshop, there's another way that an attachment would be needed potentially to show that to get a few points that you actually reviewed the PowerPoint presentations and a personal initial at the bottom. With doing this virtual workshop, we will have a listing of the attendees to this virtual meeting. So signing off of the PowerPoint won't be applicable as long as your name is listed on the application for the Greater Frenchtown Southside funding, for the large funding that you did watch, or a member of your organization did attend this virtual workshop. So if you have any questions, you are welcome. Our general department email address, cra@talgov.com. You can email at talgov.com, or you could call us. All of that information is there. You could call Sherry, you can email Sherry, you can email any member of the CRA team. Other important things. We will post any questions with the answer to the questions that are posed to us by potential applicants, since we are mostly working virtually, so that everyone can see what the questions are that we received, and we'll post those to our webpage at least once a week, but we'll try to make sure that's done twice a week. So there's going to be a question and answer section as a part of the information regarding funding. We have received at least 2 inquiries in advance of today's workshop, and I'd like to kind of quickly go over what those questions are, and we will start concluding this, but I wanted to be sure that those questions were put out so that you would know what those questions are that we received, and we can receive questions all up until the end of the cycle, or whenever you have questions. So one of the questions that we did receive was from an applicant that wondered if CRA funds could go towards application software to support an event, or to support the event or the not-for-profit organization. And the answer to that one is no, because that would be considered a tangible personal product or item. So the other set of questions that we received from additional applicant, there were a couple of parts to her question, and if you don't mind, I will read those exactly. The questions, there are 4 parts to the question. There are 4 questions, and the first question was, will the funds allow the purchase of masks, gloves, and etc. for the event? And that one, it actually depends, because it could be considered personal tangible products again, but as I get more specificity on what she's meaning with the etc., staff can work with her, and our hierarchy utilized for that. I would advise that someone would again kind of steer away from anything that could potentially be considered a tangible personal product item, and maybe try to put your funding in categories that we know are items that we easily can make a determination on the funding, if it's an eligible item or not. Her second part of her question, a different question, is, can I submit the application while the insurance policy is being processed? Well, let's remember, the only time insurance is necessary is when the event is being held on city-owned property. events that are not hosted on city-owned property, that are private properties, we don't need the insurance. Typically, if you are hosting an event on city-owned property, the insurance, I believe it's codified in the agreement, is due 30 days prior to the event. So the answer there is, again, it depends on if her event is being held on city-owned property. And if it is, then you don't have to turn the insurance in with doing the application, because we only request the copy of the insurance 30 days prior to the event. I'm not sure what Parks and Recreation requires if the event is going to be held in a park, but we'd have you to applicant to work with Parks and Recreation. So that one is, it depends on if your event is held on city-owned property. If not, insurance would not be applicable. Third part is Smith-Williams Center in one of the redevelopment zones? Smith-Williams Center is not in either CRA district, neither the Downtown Redevelopment District nor the Greater Frenchtown Southside District. And the final question was, is Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, 615 Tuskegee Street, eligible for applying for funding? Specifically, when I look at Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, I made the assumption that that is a religious organization. So the answer to that, when we looked at all of the different PowerPoint slides for any funding, when we talked about what funds cannot be utilized for, one of the things said, not for events held by religious organizations. If Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, which is Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, is a religious organization, CRA funds cannot be used specifically for an event that Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church is hosting. That does not mean that a church, and there are some that have a non-profit arm that's not tied to the religious organization. So I hope I made that clear. If anybody has any questions regarding that, don't hesitate to contact us to ask the question. A few quick final tidbits.
Sheila, also on that particular one, Tabernacle is not in the CRA district.
All right, but let me say that she didn't ask about necessarily could the event be held at Tabernacle. The question was, as it relates, can Tabernacle turn in the application? But I thank you for saying, mentioning that Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church physically itself is not inside of one of the CRA districts.
Exactly.
But I think she was meaning, can they be an applicant? But
they do.
Also,
exactly. Okay.
Yes. Also, they're physically not located in a CRA district. So an event cannot be held at Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, located at 615 Tuskegee Street. Final tidbits. Please be sure that when you're submitting the application, that threshold requirements for submitting the application, meaning it must be a not-for-profit. The event must be held within one of the CRA districts, and the application that you turn in, the event is going to be held in. The event has to be open at least to the public, while not necessarily for free, but it has to be open to the public at large. The event has to be held within the applicable fiscal year by which the application is being submitted. Be sure that you're completing the appropriate application for the correct district and funding amount desired, in addition to showing how the event meets the specific redevelopment goals and objectives. Remember that for either district, the redevelopment plans are on the CRA website. For the Greater Frenchtown Southside, not only is the redevelopment plan on the CRA website, but we pulled out the 2-page excerpt that specifically for the Greater Frenchtown Southside speaks regarding the goals and objectives. The Downtown District redevelopment plan is a little more involved, and it depends on where you're hosting your event that falls within the district. So an applicant for downtown will need to kind of peruse the entire redevelopment plan for the downtown district to be able to glean how they feel that their event meets the applicable goals and objectives of the downtown CRA district. Coming to a close, fiscal year 2020 Greater Frenchtown Southside Large Event Grant funding is first come, first serve, minimum score and funding available with the minimum score and funding available based off of funding availability. Fiscal year 2021, we are in the grant cycle currently. The grant cycle started June 8th, 2020 and goes through Friday, July 10th, 2000, no later than 4:30 p.m. We're only accepting emails. You can't mail it. You can't bring it in. You can't have it delivered. Have it by email. The applications are on our website, and there is a way that you can fill those in using Adobe to do a fill and sign. And when you type in the information, you can start and stop. But if you stop, it's going to look like the information isn't there. When you save it and you go back in, if you'll just do fill and sign again, the information will repopulate. We came up with that method really quickly due to COVID-19 so that an applicant, we could do the cycle and an applicant can turn the information in pseudo virtually, which is by completing the document, saving it as a PDF, and emailing the information to us in electronic format. Final funding, again, for the events cannot be granted until the City of Tallahassee allows official gatherings to occur within the city. With that, I don't know, Rick, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, Sheila, I think you guys did a great job, and we look forward to getting the applications. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. Melissa, you got anything you want to add? These are my CRA teammates. Did she drop off?
She's muted.
Okay. Let's see if, well, maybe if she has something, I guess she'll let me know. So with that, I just want to say, please know that the CRA team is available to assist applicants with presenting stellar applications for review and scoring with the appropriate review committee with final disposition on the funding via either the CRA director, depending on if the funding is within his purview for being able to approve, which is $25,000 and under. The CRA board approves funding amounts in excess of the $25,000, $25,000 and a penny. This workshop, this virtual workshop is being recorded and will be uploaded to the CRA web page tomorrow or either Wednesday. Again, we'll accept any questions or any questions that you have. You can call us, email us, or email us and we'll get back to you. The presentation is already, all of the presentations are already located on the CRA web page or website, and each one is annotated out. That was a question I'm getting here virtually from an attendee, but that information is already on the website. If you need some help locating it, just let us know. So with that, I would like to go ahead and conclude this virtual workshop. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that each of you be well. This will conclude this virtual optional pre-application CRA event grant workshop. Thank you very much and good day.
Thanks, Sheila. Did a great job.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great job, Sheila.
Thank you.